Welcome to the next energy saving podcast with me, George Ablett, your energy sector specialist, and inviting back again Mark Thompson, our community energy champion.
Good
Today
morning,
we're going
George.
to talk. Hi, Mark. Today we're going to talk a little bit off topic, it sounds, from energy and talk about damp and condensation, but the two are very interlinked. So, Mark, why does damp and condensation happen in the household? And is it on the increase as it seems to be?
Well, to the answer to the first question first, yes. The second question first, this is on the increase. Some 30% of homes in the UK have got some sorts of damp or condensation issues, almost entirely generated from activities within the home. There are some homes, obviously, that have structural issues, such as penetrating damp and rising damp, but most of the problems are caused by what we are doing inside buildings. Because humans create a lot of moist air in a home from a wide range of sources: showers, cooking, laundry. I'll talk more about. But in the past, you see, homes were much leakier. We had simple wooden window frames, often open chimneys, and the moisture that we created inside homes traditionally used to find its way out really, really easily. So damp and mold issues are really a relatively new phenomenon and a new problem. Because we've increasingly made homes airtight, largely through UPVC windows and doors. They've done a fantastic job of keeping the heat in, but now what they're doing is they're preventing the moisture that we're generating in a home from leaking out into the outside world. And some of the other things that are making it worse are we're now increasingly used to showers, power showers. Showers are a relatively new invention. They put an awful lot of moisture into the air. More and more people are drying laundry indoors, often to avoid using a tumble dryer. And we're physically spending more time indoors. More people working from home means more time in the home, breathing moisture out and generating moisture in the home. That is all creating homes that have got higher levels of moisture and indoor humidity that are creating condensation, damp and mold problems. So it's a relatively recent problem, but it's actually one that's unique to homes. It's extremely unlikely you'll find mold or damp issues in offices, shops or public buildings.
I see. But what harm does it do? I mean, it looks a bit black mold. We are aware of some of the health issues, but is it just that? I mean, at the end of the day, it's just water.
Yeah, it sounds very simplistic. There are many things it does. The simple one is it causes annoying condensation on windows, but there are some costly impacts of it. So it creates a home that doesn't feel as warm. Damp air in a home or high humidity in a home won't feel as comfortable. So it means you will feel more likely to want to turn the heating on or turn the thermostat up, which will increase energy costs. Your heating also has to work harder to heat humid or damp air than it would do if the air was dry. And damp air will form condensation anywhere where it can find cold surfaces. And the coldest surfaces will be the ones that attract that moisture most, which is why you get it near windows, where that's usually the coolest part of the home is on the sides of the windows or around windows. But it will find the coldest corners in the home, which could be cold corners behind furniture, inside the backs of built-in cupboards. And most seriously, though, it can find its way into the cold internal structure of a house, which in the long term can mean rotting timbers, including rotting timbers in the roof from loft condensation. But the one you alluded to earlier is the most serious one overall, which is a health issue, in that cold surfaces are a real attractive place for mold and spores to form and grow. And those spores can get into the air, which can create or worsen health conditions, especially respiratory conditions, as we've heard tragically in the news in recent months. And lastly, overall condensation and mold problems also means people feel pressure to turn the heating on or turn it up to try and get the place warmer, to stop all those things happening. That, of course, has a big impact on energy and heating costs. So high levels of moisture in the air in a home increases energy costs, which is why this particular subject is really relevant to energy efficiency and people's home energy bills as well.
Thanks, Mark. I get it. So those heating costs, I mean, is that the only solution, or are there better things to do to fix it?
There are much better things to do. The first thing to do is to look at where this water or this moisture in the air is coming from in the first place. It's from things that we are doing in the home. It might be helpful to try and put some numbers on it. So the average home will hold around about 2 litres of water in the atmosphere invisibly throughout the home, sort of held within the air, that is there all the time. It's sometimes a bit more than 2 litres and sometimes a bit less. But if that water level was as high as 3 litres, you'd have significant condensation and damp issues. So the comfortable amount is maybe 2 litres, and a home really doesn't want much more than 2 litres, otherwise it will have problems. But day-to-day activities in a home generate around 3 to 4 litres of water per person in a 24-hour period from a wide range of sources. So that's 3 or 4 litres we are each adding into the home, that's adding to the 2 litres of water that's already there in the air. And nearly half a litre of that is just from breathing, because we're breathing out water vapor all the time, for example. So the three biggest culprits are laundry drying, a wash load of wet laundry, if you're drying it indoors, by whatever method, will hold about 1 to 3 litres of water in that wet laundry on your drying rack. And as that dries out, all of that water is just going to go into the air in the home. So if you're drying laundry indoors, the best way by far to do it is to do it in a small room on its own, keep the door shut, open the window a crack, and the moisture from all of that wet laundry will find its way out of the house, and it won't go into the house, which is what you want to avoid happening at all costs. Second big one is showering. I've mentioned it already. A shower, a fine spray of hot water from a shower, particularly a power shower or a high flow shower, puts water or moisture into the air really quickly in a bathroom. And you'll see how quickly that is, because mirrors and windows steam up in a bathroom really, really quickly. That just shows you how much moisture a shower can put into the air when you're showering. So some tips there to stop that and reduce that moisture getting into the house are: keep the door shut to your bathroom or shower room. Always use the extractor if you have one. If you don't have one, open the window a couple of inches whilst you're showering. After you've showered, leave the door shut, leave the extractor running or the window open at least a little until the condensation on the mirrors and the windows has gone, so that moist air has a chance to get out of the room and away from the house, because that's a significant amount of moist air. And reducing the flow rate on the shower or reducing shower times will also help, of course, as well. And then the third big culprit for putting moisture into the air in a home is cooking. If you heat anything that is watery in the kitchen, whether it's heating a bowl of soup, porridge, pasta in a pan, you will be putting quite a lot of water into the air. So where you can, again, always use an extractor or open a window an inch or so if you've got one. If you haven't got an extractor, put lids on pans, makes a big difference, and it will also save you money, as your hob won't have to work so hard to heat whatever it is you've got on the hob. Cover things in the microwave. That will stop the sort of steam from whatever you're cooking in the microwave getting into the house. And even frying a piece of bacon releases quite a lot of water into the air in a home, because bacon, for example, holds quite a lot of water. So anything at all that creates mist or steam or involves heating, anything watery in a kitchen, cover it, and it will make a significant difference. And lots of other smaller sources as well: steam ironing, steam mopping a floor, carpet shampooing. All these things put moisture into the air, which will add or worsen condensation and damp issues that you might have. And I've got a specific article on the website I run, which has got these things described, and lots of other sources as well that people might think about, so they can look at what they're doing in their home and be a bit of a detective and work out where is all this moisture coming from, because it's only generated from human activities in the house.
That's great, Mark. And yes, there's certainly a lot of sources in the home. Like even opening the dishwasher too early sends a cloud of steam up.
Absolutely. Yeah, wait for it to cool down. Yeah.
You mentioned the article on your website. Could you just remind listeners of the address?
Yes, it's www.getenergysavvy.info. It's just a hobby website I do. I don't make any money from it, so it's just to help people.
Brilliant. So we've talked about how to reduce the water getting in the air in the first place as the source of the problem. But assuming the water is already there, what else can be done?
The surest way to really fix the problem, if you can't reduce your sources very much, is adequate ventilation. Homes badly need ventilation for them to be healthy anyway. It isn't widely known, but around a third of deaths in the UK are linked to air pollution from pollution that is generated indoors from a wide range of sources. Um, and without adequate ventilation, indoor pollution builds up and it cannot get out. And at the same time, of course, moisture is building up in a home and it cannot get out. So ventilation is incredibly important. And we have had such a strong focus on trying to make homes airtight over the years that we've sort of forgotten that actually homes do need fresh air. It's incredibly important. And it might surprise some people to hear that to keep a home healthy indoors, the air in that home needs to be changed completely at least 15 times a day to get rid of both indoor pollution and indoor moisture. That sounds like a crazy amount of air changes, but that's the minimum. And some homes are only changing air maybe 3 or 4 times a day. So you actually need to get fresh air into a home and get rid of the pollution and the moisture to have a healthy home that isn't damp as well. So if you ventilate a home adequately, your indoor moisture levels will drop significantly. The home will be more comfortable. It'll be cheaper to heat, and it's pretty much guaranteed to solve damp and mold issues.
That's really interesting, Mark. Particularly, it sounds as though if you're heating the home, then you're going to lose a lot of that heat. So you say ventilation is inexpensive, but
Yeah.
how much are we talking here? What are the figures around it?
So I haven't found any official estimates, but I've actually done some sums on it that try to calculate it from a couple of different ways that I think are really put a bit of a scale on it. So from the sums I've done, I reckon the average size home, the cost of ventilating adequately is between somewhere around £3 and £7 a week on average through the winter. And that's probably the maximum. So something like 50p to £1 a day to properly ventilate a home and give you a quality air quality in the home that's really good, and have a home that's damp and mold free. But as I said earlier, moist air in a home is more expensive to heat, and you're more likely wanting to put your heating on to drive off and get rid of your moisture problems. So actually, I think it's probably less than three or £7 a week. I think it's almost free ventilating a home the right way, because you're creating a home that's drier and more comfortable.
And it certainly sounds cheaper than trying to fix ongoing roof issues at a later date.
Yes, absolutely. Or running dehumidifiers for many hours, or simply, living in a home that's uncomfortable and particularly when it's cold and sticky.
So how and what should people do to provide adequate ventilation in the home? I mean, you've already mentioned a few important ways to do it for laundry and showering, cooking, but what else is important?
So if you have trickle vents, and unfortunately only about 10% of homes have trickle vents at the tops of windows, leave them permanently open. I know that sounds counterintuitive. They are there for a very good reason. They were introduced specifically to solve the issues of indoor humidity and damp and indoor air quality. It's particularly important in bedrooms at night time, because you're in there for 8 or 9 hours, breathing quite a lot of water vapor into the air and carbon dioxide. So it's much better for sleep quality to have bedrooms ventilated at night. And if you don't have trickle vents, leave a couple of windows open in the house, maybe one on each side of the house, just open on a crack on the security setting, just to get a little bit of air change through the house over the day and over the night as well. And if you have rooms that have damp issues, specifically, you might have a spare bedroom that's got a damp issue at the back of the wall, leave the door open to that room. Let the air from the rest of the house get into it. Let that room effectively dry out, and the air circulate around the home. And really, for the vast majority of weather conditions, I know it's counterintuitive again, but opening a window will mean the moisture levels in a home will actually reduce. This is even in the case of really wet weather. And I've written a specific article on the website explaining why this is the case. So don't worry about the weather outside. Open a window, a crack. You won't lose very much energy, and you will solve damp and condensation issues and have a much healthier home. There is another simple trick as well, which the Germans use as well, which is even cheaper. It's called Stoßlüften or shock ventilation, and it's a German tradition. And what the Germans do is they actually open all the doors, internal and external, and all the windows wide for several minutes, a couple of times a day. And what that will do in just a handful of minutes is get rid of all of the humid air and damp air and all of the internal air pollution and replace it with fresh air from the outside. Okay, that air is cooler and that air will have to then be reheated back up again. But the costs of doing it are really, really low. I've done some sums on this, and it might seem a crazy figure, but to do this probably costs between 5 and 10p every time you do it in a typical winter's day to reheat that air. It's actually an incredibly easy, cheap way of freshening the air in a home to get rid of damp and condensation issues and have a much healthier home for very, very little cost. And I think the bottom line is we shouldn't be afraid of fresh air. You know, we all like to go out for some fresh air, so let some into your home. It's far better for us and it's far better for the house, and it's actually a really energy efficient way of solving all of these tricky problems.
We'll certainly be looking at putting the German method in use, and I think roof windows as well are particularly useful if you happen to have them to crack open on that vent at night to allow it out at the top if you can. So, Mark, we've covered a lot, but are there any other tips or do's or don'ts that people should bear in mind?
Yeah, I've got a few here. So some people will turn the heating on to get rid of condensation on windows, for example, or dry it off. But actually that doesn't solve the problem because that moisture is just going back into the air in the house. Then the heating will go off, the house will cool down, and that moisture will just go back onto the cold surfaces again. So it's counterproductive to do that. It doesn't actually solve the problem. Don't use a dehumidifier to solve your problems. All experts agree that ventilation and fresh air is a much better, healthier and cheaper way to solve all these problems. If you've got a window vac, they're fantastic for hoovering up condensation on windows and tiles after a shower, and then you can pour it down the drain. And actually, you can have a wet shower area on the walls holds a significant amount of water, and you don't want that to all evaporate off into the house. If you don't have a window vac, just wipe all those surfaces down with a rag and then squeeze it away into the drain. And if you have rooms or corners of the house that have mold issues, particularly cupboards and behind sofas and behind beds, open the cupboard doors, pull things away from the wall, let air get to those surfaces, and don't isolate them and allow them to stay in their little cold zone. Bring them into the house and in terms of the airflow. And if you have a vented tumble dryer, never vent it into the house. I know some people do because they like the feeling of the warm air from the tumble dryer, but it's putting all the moisture from your laundry directly into the house, which is absolutely what you don't want.
Thanks for that, Mark. I know Adult Health would actually like me to mention that we would have indoor plants for air quality as well. But I know you've got a lot more information and explanation of all of this on your website. Am I right in thinking that people can get in touch with you through the website if they've got any questions on this specific subject, or others for that matter?
Absolutely. On any aspect of home energy efficiency or this particular subject, I'm more than happy to take questions through the website. I do it all for free. It's just something as a hobby. So I'm very happy to help people if I possibly can.
Mark, thank you for your time today. I hope, listeners, that you found that interesting. Please do let us know if there's any other topics that you would like us to cover or provide expertise on. Mark, thank you once again.
Cheers, George.
We'll look forward to speaking in future.